Hey guys, Doctor Who here with 1HP, esports medicine staff for CLG, previously Immortals and LA Valiant, and today I'm going to be going over or reviewing the top 5 tips that I've given in the past year that's going to help you improve your gaming skills and approach your development a little more holistically. And these are going to be things like utilizing your breath to stay calm and focused when you're in a game, understanding a structure for improving your skills as a gamer, performing visualization to stay less nervous while you game, and a lot more. Let's get into them.
These particular pillars of kind of positive habits, then I start to devalue myself. And that might come off strong, but I think it's important to recognize that we need to value our health and our mentality above all, and not from like a selfish standpoint, but if we can't value ourselves so much that we are prioritizing these important things, then we are not going to be the best teammate. We're not going to be the best individual player. And so we start to expect more out of ourselves than we're actually putting into ourselves. So some of those things are sleep. That's usually the first thing I always mention. If players I've worked with know that I tout sleep a lot. Let's make sure that we're getting, and the things I'm going to mention hopefully aren't novel or aren't huge groundbreaking ideas, but I think they're groundbreaking in the sense that we don't do them enough, and a self-reflection will help us realize that we are expecting more from ourselves, but yet we're not doing these things enough. So like, oh, I practiced for 12 hours today, but I still play like crap. Well, how much hours of sleep did you get? Well, I only sleep 3 hours a night. Those things don't go together. So we need to reprioritize and reschedule our day. So sleep, 8 hours, being consistent. The next thing would be social engagement. Surround yourself with people who you love and who love you, people who care about what you're doing. It's important that when we're going through problems in our life, that we are not doing it alone. It is easy to become isolated and to think that we can handle everything on our own. And suddenly that turns into kind of poor social communication, and we isolate ourselves. And so we think people don't care anymore. So surround yourself with people you love and who love you. Um, Next thing would be eating healthy and drinking enough water. So making sure that you're not overindulging, that if you start to feel sluggish or you're not doing well, a lot of the times that could be contributed to diet. So are you mindful of what you're eating, if you're drinking enough? Exercise. So I'd love to hear you guys, because I'm sure you guys know a lot more about that. The one I always say is I'm not the expert on exercise, but I tell you that the American Heart Association has already put out recommendations, and that's, I think, 30 minutes. It's 2.5 hours a week, which is like 30 minutes a day, 5 days. They've already done the work. I'm just telling you what the research says, and you'd be surprised how many people don't do that, and the clear benefits of doing that exercise. To me, those are some of the 4 biggest ones. And then after that, yeah, what are some of your coping strategies? How do you de-stress? So things like, do you know how to breathe? Literally, do you know how to breathe? Because breathing is something we do involuntarily. What do you do when you stress out? And a lot of the times, these players I work with, the answer is, I don't do anything. Time. I just wait for it to go away. Well, when you're in the middle of a Dota 2 match, you don't have that much time. You have to be able to cope with the situation in a matter of a few seconds. And so letting something that bothers you just fester until after the match, and it's already affected how you play. So making sure that we have good coping strategies in place. So to me, those are the things that are important to me: sleep, diet, exercise, and social engagement.
Everyone with a general framework for how they can approach improving the game, but it means sort of defining some things. So I'm not going to go into extreme depth, but here's some of the steps I think you guys should take, and we'll start with things that you guys can do inside the game. The number one thing I always do with any problem is kind of do an assessment. Identify where you are right now. Figure out where you are in terms of skill level. Identify what the gaps are in terms of game knowledge or mechanical skill, because then it can help you decide where you can spend some of your extra time on in gaming. So for example, in a game like Fortnite, the mechanics would be building or your aim, and would you and then the game sense would be things like, hey, when should I rotate, hey, how aggressive should I be in certain situations, and you need to identify which one is more important to you based on where you are in terms of general skill level. And for most people, if right when you get started, the typical thing is to actually work on mechanics, because mechanics represent a larger part of performance when you're at lower elo, and as you get higher and higher into the elo game knowledge, it becomes more 50-50. And then even at the highest level, I think game sense and game knowledge represents a larger portion of performance. So with inside the game, you kind of assess where you are right now, and then once you're able to identify that, you can know what you need to work on, right? Is it mechanics? Is it game sense? And then from there, you should design a plan that will allow you to get better. And that means tracking your results. And that means doing some research to identify, hey, what is the best strategy for myself to improve at game sense? Is it just to keep playing the game? That won't give you as much return on investment in terms of how much time you put in. Maybe working with a coach, maybe working with a mentor, maybe looking at some videos. Those are some things that can shorten your learning curve and allow you to improve more quickly.
It's not science unless you write it down.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think in general, as a life principle, always tracking things to know if you're making improvement is a good rule to follow. Otherwise, you have no idea whether or not you're making improvements or not, right? Like if you're doing aim training, they use the challenge, or they use the challenge in a game like Kovacs or Aim Lab as a way to help let you know if you are improving. While there are other things that are improving along the way with aim training, like your actual motor coordination, the score can be a general metric for you to identify whether or not you're improving. And I would say outside of the game, it's everything that we mentioned: exercise, nutrition, mindset management, lifestyle assessment, right? Exercise allows us to improve our cognitive function. We have more energy throughout the day. We have better stress tolerance. Nutrition, Caitlin wrote a article recently about some of the basics that we need to know as gamers and how we can eat the right foods, not only for our brain, but just in general, right? To be able to manage the long periods of time that we're playing games. But, healthy snacks like blueberries, even dark chocolate has been shown to help with cerebral blood flow. Mindset management. And we had a recent podcast episode with PhD Louie Limas, and he's killing it right now, helping a lot of players manage their performance anxiety. But not only that, how you can manage your stress at different points of the game so you can make better decisions.
Breathing is not a cure-all for anxiety or for stress, and to kind of assume that it is really leaves out a lot of nuance, especially related to how brain chemistry works. But that being said, in the absence of kind of some pathological, and here I'm talking like anxiety or depression, specific mental health conditions, in the absence of those pathologies, deep breathing can in and of itself alleviate acute stress that's happening in the moment. In the long term, a pattern of consistent good oxygenation, that is intentional deep breathing over time, paying attention to your own thought process, being present in the moment, can help with managing anxiety as well, pathological or not. If your anxiety is kind of more generalized and stemming from something more than just something in game startling you or a stressful moment that's occurring, then of course breathing is not going to fix everything, and it's not expected to. But when we're specifically talking about the kind of acute stress you experience while gaming, deep breathing will definitely help. When we talk about the ability to respond to stressful situations consistently over time and find them more manageable, yeah, breathing can help with that too. And in turn, knowing your thought processes better, which again ties into how breathing and meditation can be correlated and kind of complementary to each other, that can make it so that situations are perceived by your brain as less stressful in the first place, which is what Matt was getting at.
Exactly.
That is, so taking that time to understand your thought process, taking that time to recognize how your brain responds to stimulus, that's going to make it so that you don't have to rely so much on in the moment tools, because your brain will have automatically done them for you.
So the question was, during clutches, if my heart rate rises to about 110 BPMs, will it be lower if your resting heart rate, if you lower your heart rate by resting every day? I think in general, yes, you can say that you'll have better stress tolerance if you improve your the robustness of your cardiovascular system. I think that's a pretty safe assumption to say. But additionally, on top of that, I think elevation of heart rate and the perception of stress in those situations is something that you have to address as well. So being able to do things outside of exercise that can be very helpful in addressing the elevated heart rate can be beneficial. And with that, I just mean things like visualization, doing visualization exercises, and this all the time sounds really woo-woo, but I've helped a lot of professional players across CSGO specifically, actually, Overwatch, Fortnite, deal with this specific issue. And what I mean by doing visualization is you visualize the exact type of situation. So a clutch, you're the last remainder, you're on Mirage, you're on Ace, you're on A side, you know there's people coming from CT, you know there's people coming from Connector, and you play that in your head, and you'll have probably a slight elevation of your heart rate, but you play that in your head over and over so that you're able to, one, determine the strategy on how you quickly calm yourself down, but two, you because your brain doesn't know what's real and what's different, right? A visualization exercise to your brain is not different than the actual situation in the game to your brain. So by rehearsing these situations over and over, you can reduce the perception of stress in that actual situation, and it will reduce your heart rate. But not to discount the effectiveness of exercise. I think both are probably the best answer, right? Lowering your overall heart rate, as well as your ability to tolerate stress through exercise. High intensity interval training is probably my favorite recommendation, and then doing things like visualization. I'm gonna pull up a drawing, and Elliot will be helping me through this process as well. But if you guys look at this drawing here, we have finger, we have our spinal cord, and we have the brain. This is what it looks like from the outset, right? And with a simple reaction time, what I just showed you guys earlier, all you guys are looking at is a red screen. When it turns green, you click, right? So what happens is you see something with your eyes, you process that it turns green in your brain, and then it sends the signal all the way from your brain all the way down to your spinal cord, all the way down to your finger, so you can click. That's your simple reaction time, right? So the stimulus is, again, just one red, and then it turns green. But in a video game, or in Fortnite and CSGO, there's multiple stimuli that you have to consider, right? So you're seeing multiple things. And essentially what happens is a lot of stimuli or a lot of cues enter your brain right here. And what happens is it's a little factory that has to process all that information. This is processing, guys. This is when I draw circles, that means processing. The brain is processing information, and once it's done processing, then it can send the signal all the way down to your hands to make a click. So you're perceiving information with all these straight arrow lines here. You're processing information, and then you're executing on the information by sending the signal, and that's your response. Or does aim training work? That debate, we can put it to bed, because 100% yes, it can work. Because if I bring the drawing back, what we're doing with aim training is we're making this system from the brain down to the hand more efficient. We're changing that 3-step pathway. One step is perception, right? These lines. Step 2, processing of the brain. And step 3, sending the signal to create the response. Hitting that target in Kovacs, hitting that target in Aim Lab, whatever you guys utilize, right? So aim training does work, and it's creating efficiency in this brain to peripheral tissue pathway, or brain to hand pathway, to allow you to click faster. And that is a nice little segue to the different types of reaction time that Elliot's about to describe for us. Hey guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to be creating quite a few more of these review videos to better organize a lot of the content that I create to help you guys learn more and just be better gamers. So thanks again. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share this with anyone that you feel like it's going to be helpful for. And if you want to support me, I always leave a link at the description, in the very beginning of the description, that accesses our Patreon, which allows you guys to ask us specific questions that we'll answer and create in a video, but also have early access to a lot of the content pieces that I'm going to be making in the next year. Adios.